Hey everyone, welcome to the Body, Mind, Spirit Show with me, your host, Rita Hurry. I have a special guest on the show today. Her name is Dr. Katrina Nguyen, and she is the founder of Faithful to Fitness and a Paediatric. Katrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Right. So I like to find out a little bit about your journey and for yourself, your childhood and your journey escaping Vietnam to the US. Can you share a little bit about this?
April 30th, 1975, I was 14 months old and I was the youngest of eight children at the time. So my dad is a fisherman by trade. He decided just to give our family a chance for survival. He took us, the whole family, on his fishing boat and just went out into the ocean. And just like many other boat people around that time, we just said, maybe we'll get rescued, or what other options do we have? So that's what happened, and we ended up being transferred to like a flat, and then eventually many of us boat people, my family included, were rescued by a merchant humanitarian ship and brought to the Philippines. And after processing paperwork as refugees, we were flown to Guam, which was our first settlement in America.
Okay. So obviously make, that transition into US lifestyle and living. I mean, as a young child growing up, can you recall what that was like for you in terms of then sort of starting school and then growing up and in a completely different environment? I mean, what was that like?
Mhm. Well, a couple of things, before I explain that, during my journey as a refugee, I learned that I nearly died twice. Um, During the transfer from the flat to the merchant ship, I nearly fell in the ocean because, other than somebody catching my leg, that's what happened. Otherwise, I would have fallen in the ocean and died. And then when we made it to Guam, I was ill with an infection in the head and neck region, and I had to have surgery, emergency surgery in the refugee camp. So my parents were told that they weren't sure. The doctors weren't sure if I would survive the surgery. And when I did, they were so grateful because they were already looking for a burial site. So knowing that story and how lucky I was, second chances that I was given at life, it really, was a big part of me growing up and journeying through my early childhood and being grateful for that, and even more so as an adult. After my family was in Guam, past like July of 78, my little sister was born. So sometime after 76, early 77, we were sponsored by Catholic Charities and brought to Louisiana, which there was a large Vietnamese refugee community there. And they were instrumental in building up the Catholic Church, and lots of catechism classes and sisters that ran the program to teach us. And so on the weekends and in the afternoons, I would learn about the faith and catechism and learn my prayers. And my parents made it very important that we practiced our faith. And during the daytime, I went to American school, right? So I was put on the bus and went out, an hour away, and learned English and learned how to adapt to American culture. But my little brother was born in March of 78 in Louisiana. So we had, 10 children, different ages, about 20-year difference from the oldest to the youngest. So we had to adapt. My parents had to figure out like how could they find time to work with the older siblings taking care of the younger siblings. And that was like a huge adjustment for our family, but we made it work.
And I think really having that your faith there in the end be I mean just hearing your story there in terms of not only making that transition but nearly losing your life twice
Mhm.
and finding your faith through all that, you can just see I'm a very visual person. So when people talk, just seeing almost like the hand of God on you,
Mhm.
you know, bringing you out of this and
Mhm.
almost in my child, I've got you, almost that sort of comes to mind. I mean, how has your faith helped you in terms of the transition? I mean, did you find that your faith was really strong as you were growing up, or did it sort of was it a slow process? Because obviously it's all completely new for you.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think my parents are cradle Catholics. Traditionally in Vietnam, Buddhism, Confucianism was much more prevalent, but with the influence of the French, Christianity was brought to Vietnam, and so for all I know, my parents have always been Catholic, and I have two brothers who are Catholic priests. So the oldest and the third brother. So faith was always an important part of our family. We prayed together morning and night. We went to church Saturday or Sunday together. And almost everything that we do, decisions, we always prayed for God's direction and seeking God's will. Certainly, I think in my 20s, I probably wasn't as focused on that and incorporating the faith into everything I do. But in my 40s and now, turning 50 in this past February, that's what I strive for. I strive to seek God's will, do God's will, and really do my best to be better in incorporating my faith to all that I do every day.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. And you do not look 50. I mean, I turned 50 in January, just a month
Thank you.
before, and it's like life gets real, doesn't it?
It does, it does. And I think a few years ago I said, I got to figure out how to blend that gray.
No, I love it. It's great. So you've actually set up a non-profit, Faithful to Fitness, and that's to fight childhood obesity. Can you tell me a bit more about this and what made you set it up?
So I established Faithful to Fitness November 2014. Prior to that, so I had finished my pediatric GI fellowship in June of 2009 and took my first job in Augusta, Georgia, August of 2009. During the time I was there, which I was there till May of 2013, my partners and I were talking about starting a childhood obesity intervention clinic. But one of the challenges we faced was figuring out how to get insurance to cover, this service that we would provide. And we also had talks about, would we have behavioral health, psychiatry involved? Would we call it like an eating disorder? Because obesity was not being covered as a diagnosis. Insurance companies were covering things that were related to obesity, like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, those types of things, but not specifically obesity. And so there's lots of talk around that. And I just felt this compulsion, especially with obesity prevalence being so high and increasing in children across the country, and especially where I first worked in Georgia. I said, if we're struggling to make a difference in this particular condition, which affects many other secondary conditions, and why do we have to limit it to the hospital? Why not talk with the community and figuring out, talking to patients, barriers that they're facing to develop healthy lifestyle? And through conversations with patients who would see me like every 3 months, and either they didn't change or not, they gained more weight or had worse liver disease from fatty liver. I identify barriers that community programs and partnerships could help, make happen. And that's why I started my first obesity intervention program for children. And then when I came to Illinois in July of 2013, my partners talked about, like, would you like to do what you did in Georgia here in Illinois? And I recalled I received a grant through American Academy of Pediatrics in Georgia that basically told me that my idea, my blueprint would work and can be replicated across the country in any city, not specific to any clinic or any hospital. So that's when I formed a nonprofit here. And it's going on almost 10 years. my goal is to be able to help any city across America, starting in America, that would like to do what I do, because I have a blueprint to do it.
Beautiful. I love that. And what have you noticed, though, were the barriers that stopped a lot of children, and even parents from actually implementing that which you advice and tools
Mhm.
given them?
Sure. So a couple of different things. Number one is motivation, like being in the right environment, being around people that can motivate you to exercise, to eat healthier, and develop healthier habits, like sleeping earlier instead of staying up and gaming all night. That's a big thing for children. The other thing in terms of healthy is sometimes, you don't have the right knowledge, right? You may think you know what's healthy eating, what's the right portion size, how much exercise you need, should you be drinking sugary beverages? And so that knowledge, because we say, okay, even if you have knowledge, like, are you applying the knowledge? One of my mentors used to say, people say, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is power, and people forget that. So providing that knowledge. Another issue is financial barriers. So some people will say, I can't afford a gym, and therefore I can't exercise. And or I feel like if I try to eat healthier, it's going to be more expensive. So retraining people to think, about healthy living and healthy habits is that it doesn't cost more to eat healthier. And you don't need to have a gym membership to be active. There are other ways. So my program gives people opportunity to overcome some of those barriers, and just sometimes just like that 3 months of, being around the right people and seeing that your struggle, you're not alone, and others can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the number one thing definitely from that is we come up with the excuses, don't we? Where we're like,
Mhm.
oh, but this, but that. And it's like nowadays there's so much out there. I mean, like you mentioned in terms of a gym membership,
Mhm.
working out from home, going for walks. I mean, I don't know about the US, but here in the UK, we have some parks where they actually have some painted equipment that you can actually use in the park, so
Mhm.
someone can go for a walk in the park and can also do a few pull-ups and different things that they
Mhm.
can do. So
Yeah.
I think what I love about what you're doing is that you're educating not only the children, but the parents as well, because it just takes a parent to come up with all this, no, it won't work, or
Mhm.
my child just wants sweets and just wants sugary stuff. But it is about educating the parents, isn't it? Because they're the ones that will say yes or no to the
Mhm.
sugary stuff.
Mhm.
What do you think is the hardest? Is it trying to educate the parents, or is it trying to educate the children? Well, what have you found in your journey?
I think initially, so a couple of things we noticed, my dietitian that volunteers, we noticed is that for the parents to convince the child to come to the program initially, the day one, walking through the doors. So that's the first challenge for the parents. Once the child makes it through the door, and then it's like they realize they're not alone, and it's not like, oh, you're the only one struggling and we need to work on you. Then they overcome that. Then the second part is recognizing and telling the parents, like, you can't say, oh, my child wants soda, and that's why, he or she is gaining weight and is not getting healthier. And so we will point out, well, who's providing it, right? Who's providing that? Because certainly they're not working and earning money. So we redirect the parents to who's in charge, and who's controlling the budget and the healthy eating. So then they realize, don't blame the child, take responsibility for what you're doing. And then we also say, don't, target just one child. It's a family intervention. If you're supportive and you want your child to get healthier, everybody in the family should do the same thing. It's no different than, say, somebody who has celiac disease that has to be in a gluten-free diet, right? It's much easier for the environment and the food and the meals that are prepped to be gluten-free so that we don't have to stress about making special meals and making the child who's struggling with that feel like they're different, right? So that's what we try to emphasize.
Yeah, no, I love that. How has this work deepened your faith in God?
Well, I get asked that a lot, and the fact that the name of my nonprofit is called Faithful to Fitness. One of the questions parents will often ask is this faith-based? And I said, depends on how you look at the question. If you're asking me, do you have to be part of a certain faith to be part of it? Absolutely not. Everybody is welcome. But it's the name is based on my faith growing up that time, talent, and treasure. And so the faithful to fitness is that. The other thing is the word faithful to me is that we will fail, just like, failing to be faithful in the practice of our faith. And the most important thing is to say if we struggle with eating healthy, losing weight, getting back, on track to exercising, there's always a chance to go back and do it again, right? Nobody's saying just because you failed once, you can't ever go back and do it. And so that's the basis of that. Certainly thinking about my faith and thinking about the importance of helping my neighbor and being giving and using my gifts and talents to make a difference in the world, in my community. That's what has guided me, and always seeking like opportunities and asking God to say, God, who would be a good partner? Who is passionate about the cause that I have to help them and invite them to be part of this journey to make a difference in our mission as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because it is ensuring that you have the right partners who have that ethos and that same sense of belief of we believe in this project, we believe
Hmm.
this, and being of service is
Hmm.
so important. And coming from a giving heart as well is because I'm sure you faced many challenges, as a non-profit to be able to get this off the ground, and how much dedication is needed to someone who feels they have a purpose for a non-profit, who has the skills, but is a bit unsure, like how much dedication is required. Obviously, you're an expert. You've taken this from the ground up. What would you say?
Hmm. I think when you first start the nonprofit, the first year is the most challenging. Number one, coming up with a name, a mission statement, creating a website, finding somebody that can help you with that, finding an attorney that could help create the paperwork needed to file nonprofit status. So those are kind of the groundwork. And then identifying board of directors. We need a minimum of 3 people. So we have that. And most importantly, like in our nonprofit, my goal is to make it a true nonprofit where nobody that serves on it gets paid a penny, and it's based on volunteerism. Other nonprofits are not like that, right? So that's a big difference. And I want 100% of anything that's donated and raised to go directly to the program and the families that can benefit. And none of the partnerships get anything. They actually donate to events that we have. After the first year is not as challenging because the partnerships and the sponsorships actually know that you're real, like you are a true, nonprofit. But explaining yourself in the beginning is challenging. I started also a 5K event like after the first year in 2016 August. So every August we have a 5K event, and this year is going to be our 9th year, called Fight Obesity, Walk With Me. And so it's a walk run, and it's very family and kid friendly and dog friendly and stroller friendly. And so it's about bringing the community out at least once a year and telling them, like, let's walk together, let's support each other. It's not a race. It's about helping each other complete a goal and say, I did a 5K and I'm doing it every year. So I've had people who've come out who have never done one. I've had people who've weighed like 300, 500 pounds, walked every day to prepare for the 5K, and they've lost, 25% of their weight after a couple of years. And it's that motivation and letting other people know that the community is behind you, that this is important. And if you don't want to walk by yourself, there's going to a community of people who will help walk with you every day to get you to achieve that goal. But certainly, again, like getting sponsorship for a 5K, again, like establishing that you're legitimate and that you have a track record. My nonprofit is also trademarked. So when you say, you know, how important was faith part of all of this, I saw the Holy Spirit working along the way, and conversations that I had where I could see, like, it wasn't what I said, but it was like God working in the heart of the partners to say yes and not say, what's in it for me? But it's like, how can I help you? And I think that was very key in a lot of those things that made it happen.
Love that. That's we're truly blessed to have the Holy Spirit to be able to work through us where maybe we, like, you know, we would have got tongue tied or stuck and it would have come from a different place, but
Hmm.
just allowing the Spirit to take over
Hmm.
is a beautiful thing,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of your own journey and obviously with the nonprofit, you said you want to expand it. What else are you doing outside of the nonprofit that in terms of your career, in terms of just your life in general, that um, you can share with us on the podcast today, just of
Hmm.
how, because obviously managing a nonprofit is busy, you know, it does
Hmm.
take your time as well as obviously what you do as a career, but like sort of outside, how do you balance it all?
So I graduated medical school in 2002 and did residency, then fellowship, and then I worked two different salary jobs in the course of, you know, the past 2 decades. And in July of 2020, I decided to leave a salary job for the first time in my life, and I did travel medicine called locum tenens for most of 2021. I also do telemedicine through a group called My Catholic Doctor since February of 21. So, and then in October of 2020, I also had the opportunity to do a supervisory role for a radiology center locally and brought two other doctors in so that we can rotate our schedule. So the beauty of being not stuck in a salary job in a hospital and going independent has been beautiful. And I felt like I needed that. And I felt God's calling to say, devote time, you know, get control of your schedule so that you can spend more time to, like, you know, spend time in adoration chapel, go to mass more than just on Saturday or Sunday. So I make an effort to do an extra day of mass. And it's different because you meet different people that you don't meet on Saturday or Sunday necessarily, and conversations are different. I do I write books. So I published a memoir in December 2020 that I had been working on for 10 years. Like, I kept writing chapters here and there and stories here and there. And finally I put it together and had a publisher, you know, accept it. And that's been very powerful. That memoir is that has led me to speaking opportunities. So I trained to be a professional speaker and did my first keynote for my medical school in June of 22, and
Wow.
gone on to do many podcasts. But from there, speaking and writing and, you know, people networking, right, through podcasting and live events, I had the opportunity to publish, co-author two other books with women authors. So one is called The Confidence of Yes with 11 other women, and then the other one was published in October 23 called Overcoming Mediocrity, Epic Women. It is the 12th book in the series of Overcoming Mediocrity. So I think, like, sometimes you think, oh, I just want to do my own thing, but it's nice to network with other people because your message can be shared across many platforms and many audiences.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why I love doing this podcast. It's because I get to meet amazing people like yourself, and that many, you know, you live, like, for obviously, you know, you living in Illinois and obviously your network, and then having a podcast interview like from me in the UK can expand that network as well. And people in
Mhm.
the UK can be like, wow, that's great work. And it might lead to further networking. So I think exactly what you've said, just being able to connect with different people. And I love the way that you're open to opportunities and you're
Mhm.
open to what God has for you, and that it's not in a box.
Mhm.
Because I
Mhm.
love, it's so easy for us to be like, okay, God's asked me to do this.
Mhm.
That's it. That's what I'm going to focus on. How important I mean, I know you've answered this through the example of what you're living, but how important is it for us to be open to God's calling and just allow these opportunities to flow through?
I feel that it's very important, and I don't think enough people stress that importance in their life. I think that ever since I did more of that, like in my 40s compared to my 20s, I've found more joy in my life. I focused more on gratitude and generosity as a source of joy and wellness. And prior to that, I was always like, I have this goal, I have this plan, I have to do this. And then I listened to, mentors that would say, this is what you need to do. And it's like they're sharing what they did, but isn't necessarily what's good for you. And maybe your path is going to be different. And so I find that the other thing that's important is that sometimes God sends you like signs and conversations and people and situations where you have to be open to, like, that could be a sign. Or if you see it like at least 3 times the same message, maybe you should pay attention. And I've been more open to that, especially in the past like 3 or 4 years, rather than in the past like, oh no, this is it, this is the plan, don't let me get distracted.
Yeah.
And in the past, I might see opportunities as distraction, but now I say, oh no, that's a true opportunity. Take a listen and pray about it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just reminded me there of conversations I'd had with my younger sister. She's always saying, "Oh, you should do speaking. You should do speaking." And I was like, "No, I do not want to do speaking. I just do the consulting, and that's it. That doesn't interest me at all." And then the other week, I said, "No, I'd actually like to do speaking. I know, like, I want to bring in the faith element and
Mhm.
really talk about it." And she goes, finally, you saw it. And it's like, but it's through, like you said, it's through conversations I've seen,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just watching speakers and when they're talking about their faith, and it's just stirred up something in me. And then it's like you said, like the Holy Spirit has
Hmm.
kind of guided and said, it's a path for you. You enjoy talking, you enjoy sharing,
Hmm.
you do it on social media all the time. Why not?
Hmm.
And then so yeah, so it was like, it's interesting how that's evolved. But yeah, exactly
Hmm.
like you said,
Yeah.
God sends you signs, and it's like, well, are you going to look at it, or are you just going to put it to one side?
Yeah, and I had the same thing. One of my speaking coaches was telling me, "Oh, you should do a podcast," and I'm like, "No," and I just don't feel like that's not my role. My role is to be on podcasts, be on live events, write books, and get invitations when I feel like that's the calling. There's a sign there, and to do that. But yeah, and I would be around other speakers who are having podcasts, and I would feel like, gosh, do I have to do it? But no, I was like, that's not me, and I have to know who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry, if it is you, you'll know. No, but I love that. So what I love to do is, with all my guests, I like to ask them a final message that they'd like to share with the viewers and listeners. It could be related to their faith, God, but just something that the viewers can take away with them, to inspire them and to motivate them. What would
Hmm.
your final message be?
I would say my final message is this. Number one is to think about other people. Don't be too self-absorbed. And I think when you seek ways to help other people make a difference in the world with your gifts, your time, and your talent, that's the beautiful way to find your purpose. And it's like I think it was Mahatma Gandhi that said the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And the second thing is to, like Saint Teresa of Calcutta once said, is that we should do something small, do all things with great love. And it could be a very small thing to you, but it could be something beautiful and making an impact in someone's life. So those are two very important things that would be helpful to all listeners.
Yeah, yeah, that's like, And I keep saying it's beautiful, but Katrina, it's your fault. You keep saying beautiful things that are inspiring. But yeah, definitely. And what is the name of your memoir? So if anyone wants to find that.
The memoir is called Live to Give. And then the subtitle is An Inspirational Memoir About Freedom, Faith, and Selflessness. So you can find it on Amazon or on the publisher's website called Hilton Publishing Company. There is a paperback and also an ebook. So the ebook is readily available instantly to international customers, and we highly recommend it because it's really easy to read. It's on like an EPUB app.
Brilliant. And where can our viewers and listeners go to find out more about you, your nonprofit, and your services?
So I created a website a few years ago called www.mdkatrina.com. So mdkatrina.com. And there you can learn about my journey as a physician, a nonprofit founder, an author, and a speaker, and connect with me through, for speaking opportunities where I can help either create a program for childhood obesity in the community, or just inspire people towards generosity or faith and the importance of freedom in our life. So.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And honestly, I think your project, what you do, your nonprofit, would be amazing here in the UK. So I'm just going to plant that seed with you, because
Yeah.
a lot of people would benefit from that, even if it starts off small, going big. I definitely just wanted to plant that. I felt called by God to actually say that to you right now on this.
And I've never been to the UK, so
Yeah, that's a good excuse.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem. Katrina, thank you so much for being an amazing guest. And I'm sure the viewers and listeners have got a great deal of information, not only in terms of service and faith, but also looking after their health as well, which is important for children as well as adults. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope your listeners benefit greatly, and wish everybody a wonderful day.
Thank you. Well, that's it for today, folks. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll be back real soon. Bye.